welcome Dave Iseman.
Hi, I'm David Iseman. The slide does not lie. So our story starts in a small town just north of Boston. Can this play or am I?
Kiss 108 is WXKSFM, Medford, Boston. 4 o'clock, Dave Iseman with an eye. And the first kiss of the 80s, your chance to win really big very soon is coming. Kiss 108.
So that was me as a baby DJ. And before fate and my ex-wife directed me to do so, I got into real estate. But for years, I was in broadcasting. That was a fun station, Kiss 108. That was we broadcast from a town a few miles north of Boston called Medford, Massachusetts. Now, if you're familiar with that area, you may not recognize the name of that town, which is better known by its Puritan name, Metha. So if you go to Metha, you were in Medford. This cut was from a story that Channel 2 WGBH did on the story. I happened to be on the air. It wasn't a story about me, but on the radio station. And it was a disco station at the time, and we were mixing records live, which was terrifying on the air. And we had a great time, though. One of the promotions was a contest to go see the Bee Gees down in Providence. And what happened? Sorry, this happens a lot to me. Oh, look, I'm the only one. So the limo goes down to the South Shore to pick up these giggling teenagers and brings them to Metha, to the radio station. And we're going to helicopter them down to the Providence Civic Center to see the show. I mean, it's a thrill. It was exciting for me, and these girls were practically drooling with excitement. They won a bunch of other prizes as well. The parking lot at Kiss 108 was made of gravel, and so it was like a machine gun when this helicopter landed. That was just one of the fun things that happened at Kiss 108. And the reason that's the start of the story. I met a friend. Her name was Joan. She was part of the morning show, and we're still friends. After I left KISS, I had spent some time at Magic 106.7, and then I moved down to Cape Cod. And years later, she called me, and I had a bit of a theater background, and she said, "Would you like to be in a movie?" And at the time, I had time. So I said, yes. And she said, well, be at Goat Island in Newport, Rhode Island, and they'll fit you for a costume and everything. Didn't know much about it. I knew it was directed by James Cameron, who directed Titanic, so I said, this is going to be an A-list production. And I had never been in a movie before, except for some 8mm thing at Emerson College where I went. It was very grainy, and it was about a bus. That's all I remember. So they fit us out. I was an extra, and so was Joan. And they outfitted us with evening wear, and so I was resplendent in a tuxedo. The audition process was very simple. You practically ran by one of the production team, and if you had a look, you got cast. So they needed 200 people in the middle of winter. It was freezing cold out. It was February, and the shooting took place at Rosecliff, which is a cottage. Well, it's not really a cottage, but that's what they call it. The cottages, if you've ever been to Cliff Walk, are like a mansion, and they're big, and they're unheated too. And it was February, and it was really cold, and we're in these thin little shoes. We all have our down coats on. So we find out that Arnold Schwarzenegger is one of the stars of the movie, and I think that's his back there, and the yellow arrow is pointing toward moi. So there were two people on the planet that recognized me in the movie, me and my mother. So that's why I had to put that yellow arrow. So my story starts at Cliff Walk, really, and this is my brush with Hollywood, and I got cast in this thing. It's freezing cold in February. We're in a giant ballroom scene. I'm just hanging out on the side. I'm an extra. I'm doing my best to act unobtrusively. And my friend, Joan, who you saw a couple of pictures ago, happened to be right next to me. Now, as they were checking us in, they emphasized, and there were signs that there were no photographs allowed on the set. I assumed it was because they didn't want any advanced publicity. So that was made very clear. And as we filed into the ballroom, the assistant directors were on a megaphone. They say, no photographs whatsoever. And there were no camera phones anywhere, so it was really hard to take a picture unless you had a big bulky camera, which my friend Joan happened to sneak in. So my first day of filming was her 6th, and I didn't know the backstory. I told her I was going to tell this story, and she told me the rest of the story. So we were getting ready to film a key ballroom scene. Tia Carrere was also another actress, was starring in the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so did Jamie Lee Curtis. The movie was very successful. They made it for a little over $100 million, and it made $357 million. My check wasn't quite that big. But I did get paid for it, which was fun. They rehearsed the scene a couple of times, and what was funny is, because there was no heat in the ballroom, we all had our down coats on. So in one moment it looked like an LL Bean catalog. And then the director would call for a take, and we would shed our coats and stash them under the tables, and it was magically elegant. So the director called for a take, and Arnold and Tia Carrere are there. The ballroom goes dead silent. You can't have any noise on the set. And out of the blue, I heard a loud click. And the click emanated from a camera that was right next to me in my friend Joan's hand. And I said, you have got to be kidding me. What about no photographs did you not understand? Well, a wall started coming toward me. And the wall had 2 arms and 2 legs. And the wall had an image of Arnold Schwarzenegger's face on top of it. Only my laundryman will know how scared I was at that moment. He looks at Joan and says, give me the camera. And he takes it out, and again, this is when film was happening, and he took out all the film, threw it under the table, handed the camera back, and said, no photographs. So the scene resumed. They called for a dinner break. Now, if you're ever in a movie, there's 2 words you really got to remember, besides no photographs, and that is craft services. Those are the caterers, and they always do a good job. That's where a lot of the $100 million went, I think, on the food. So we were having a good time. However, my friend Joan stayed back, and she was very embarrassed by the situation that happened with Arnold. But what I didn't know was that near the beginning of filming, her son had a car accident. And he was okay, kind of racked up, but he was going to be okay. And she had an opportunity in a pre-production meeting to meet with Arnold, who promised her a photograph for her son. So when I got to the set, it was day 6. So I didn't know that. All I heard was the click that rocked the ballroom. And Arnold came back in. Keep in mind, she was the only one in the ballroom at this point. Arnold came back in to apologize for embarrassing her in front of all the extras. And she explained that you promised to give me a photograph for my son who was in an accident. And he turned on his heel, went out, went to his trailer, and came back with a front page of the Boston Herald, on which he was featured, because it was a big deal having Arnold Schwarzenegger in New England. And he signed it and gave it to her. She gave it to the Sun, and he was very happy. So that's my story, my brush with Hollywood. And the moral of the story is when Arnold says no photograph, do not take out a camera. Thank you. And I know at least two of you are dying to use the bathroom, which is downstairs. When you go down here to my left, they're toward the front, and there's some water down there. And I hope you enjoyed the second part of the show. Thanks.